Welcome to a brand new episode of the Marketing Business Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Whitnish. Today, we're going to talk about how to start a podcast in 2023 and beyond, a conversation that I was looking for before launching this earlier in the year. And it can be a bit overwhelming knowing what you need in place, where to get started. For me, there was a lot of doubts and insecurities and a lot of procrastination going on. I understood that it would be a time investment once I got started, and then things tick over in the back of your mind. Well, what about a studio? All these other elements that can go into it. But as you can see, I'm certainly not starting out in a studio. I just committed to getting moving, taking that first step, hitting record with a few basic tools in place, and understanding that I'll get better as I go, and we can invest more resources into the future once we have a wider distribution. And I think that's the first point. If you're going to go down the podcasting route, understand that unless you've got significant audiences on other channels that can come across and listen, in the early days, you're going to produce these episodes. It's going to take up your time, not a hell of a lot of tuning in terms of audience and listeners, which can be a little bit disheartening unless you choose to promote the podcast episodes, of course, and circulate them or collaborate. But it's having that long-term mindset. Hey, if I start down this road, I'm going to build my craft, my ability to communicate and talk into a microphone. I'm going to get better with my expertise in my niche as I go. So I'm going to be able to have better conversations. As my profile grows, I'll be able to invite other guests on to share value to the audience, and it creates a stable place to show up at whatever interval you want to and provide value to the wider marketplace, and a neat little legacy, more so for your kids and generations in your family that ever want to tune back in and hear what you did and what you had to talk about when you were on your journey. I think that's one of the cool reasons my son Bailey can come back and listen to some of these episodes down the line if he ever wants to hear what Dad got up to in his mid to late 30s. So to kick things off, you want to start by choosing your topic, and I recommend going into an area that you're either developing right now, so you've got a journey that you're on, so you can share through conversation how that's going and take people behind the scenes and give them a peek under the hood. And you're talking about things that are happening in real time. The other thing that you can do is talk about areas that you have clearly established results and expertise in. So it could be elements of the industry or market you're in. You want to have an audience and a listener in mind when you get started, or else it could go all over the place and you won't quite land and have people tuning in. I took a longer term view when I came up with the name Marketing Business Wealth, understanding who I also wanted to have appearing on the show, but understanding that marketing and business tie in together, and wealth is another pillar that expands onto business. It can also be created through business, and they're the areas that I pursue personally and have a lot of stories and insights to tell. The expertise is around marketing. That's what our companies have been doing for almost 13 years now. So it's a service that we're actively providing day in and day out. So we can talk to that from real world experience. Also, the 13 plus years have been on the business journey as well. So we can talk to business, and the wealth is something that we'll bring the experts on. And as we're evolving, me and my family, my wife, down this path, we'll share what that journey is like, and I will be diving into my wealth experience to date on an upcoming episode, which is a roller coaster, including wiping myself out in my mid-20s. So there'll be a lot of lessons that you can learn from and avoid those mistakes. So what do you need to get set up and going? The main thing that was running through my mind was, what do I need to actually distribute across the different listening platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and all those moving parts? That was one of the things that was holding me back. Now, to give you some context, we did some podcasting all the way back in, might have been 2014 or 2015, and we did it on SoundCloud. Me and my business partner at the time, we'd jump on a free conference call, and we'd have basically a phone conversation, and that would get recorded and we'd upload it to SoundCloud. Then we had a show called Aussie Closers on Grant Cardone TV, which they would take the episodes and distribute that as a podcast on platforms like Apple. So there was some background experience from a long time ago, but we weren't heavily involved in any production with the Aussie Closers. And with that one I was doing with Jack Murray, that was just on SoundCloud, so that was a very simple process. So all these other platforms that have emerged since then, I wanted to make sure we were getting the episodes up onto all of them. So wherever people like to tune in and listen from, we gave them that choice and option. So the first thing I did was look up, how does that work? So you need a hosting service for your podcast. And the one that I went with is called Buzzsprout. And it's really easy, and I haven't looked at the others, so I've only used that one. And you do pay for it. It's a paid service. They may have a free version if you're just starting out. I'm not sure, but I always dive into the paid service and make sure that I give myself all the tools and everything that's required to do things on brand and have the most impact. It's not a big investment. It's maybe $50, $60 a month, something around that area. But what it does is I can record my episode like I'm doing right now, and I'm using Camtasia on a Mac Air. So there's no fancy setup, as you can clearly tell, just to record it to my laptop to get the video footage, which goes onto the YouTube platform, and then we will cut shorts from some of the episodes to go on TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, things of that nature. But we take the audio from this Camtasia platform, so we extract that out. So that's a very simple piece of software that you can get and download on your computer. It's obviously not high production, high quality in terms of the camera version if you're watching on YouTube, but it is a really nice, easy way to get started and a very easy way to extract the audio. So we extract the audio. I've got a Rode microphone here. I might put the links to the tools and that I use to record if you do like the quality. If you don't, you might go with another solution. I'll put them in the episode notes so you can see exactly what I use if you want to go ahead and get access to the same setup. You can always obviously raise the bar. And I've got these headphones as well, which I'm actually not even sure what brand they are, but I'll put a link to the ones I got. So Rode microphone that plugs in to the sound on my Mac to hopefully get a pretty nice quality output of sound. The Camtasia to capture the video and the sound recording to the computer. Then once that's extracted, I go to Buzzsprout, where I've created my podcast. And what that does is it has a feed for Buzzsprout that anyone can go and access the show from. But it also, from uploading it to Buzzsprout, I've connected all the different channels. So Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it. I think there's about 12 different podcasting channels that I've connected myself to through Buzzsprout. And every time I upload the audio, the description and the title, it will go across all those different channels. So the effort's only done one time. I don't have to go to each one of those platforms, Spotify, Apple, and do this process over and over again. I upload it to the hosting service at Buzzsprout, and it's done. And it automatically goes out within 24 hours across all those different channels. So the listeners that are tuning in, all 4 of them, can come in on those different platforms and have a listen wherever they see fit. So that was probably the biggest one I needed solved. The microphone was another one, getting something for the sound. This was only a couple of $100, might not even have been that much, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. In the first few episodes, all the settings you can probably see here if you're watching on YouTube or on the back of this mic, I actually hadn't taken the foam outside the front of the microphone. So if you go back to those first 1 or 2 episodes, I've actually got foam blocking the space between this part here and the microphone, and didn't even realize that was happening. So that probably has a bit to do with how those episodes come out, but you laugh about it, you learn, and you move forward, and you keep showing up, which is the key element to it there. So they're the basic tools that I'm using. Very simple. As I said, record using Camtasia to my MacBook Air, Rode microphone for sound, got the headphones on just to hear the sound feedback in my ears. Buzzsprout, upload each episode's audio, write out a description and title. That goes out across all the different listening platforms, all the major ones from the single effort. So that's done. I'll use rev.com to transcribe the audio of each episode. And I'll use the automated transcription, which is 25 cents per minute. So you can upload the entire transcription to Buzzsprout, and that'll be there. And that just helps with things like SEO and so forth to hopefully get some more listeners down the track. So a very fun and simple process. You can also upload your branding. So to do the branding for the podcast, we just use the Aaron Whitnish branding. So the the Montserrat, I think there's the font that I use. We use Canva and just put a image of myself using the templates that they have for podcasting, logos and banners and things of that nature. So that's where we did the branding and just used the brand colors and so forth. And yeah, all set up in Buzzsprout to easily generate across all those different platforms. And it's a really fun process. And why I love podcasting is it just gives me a simple format to show up to each week. I know I've got to get at least one episode in the bank. I can capture notes throughout the week about what I could potentially talk about. As you know, in some of the earlier episodes, if you've been tuning in since the start, we have had guests on. We'll be doing a lot more of that, but it's the end of the year, so I've been writing solo for the last few weeks. And it also helps me to practice talking about the different things that I'm going through day to day, some of the things that I've learned, some strategies that can help the marketplace. And I know with time, when we get to say episode 100, there'll be more than 4 or 5 people tuning in. Hopefully, if I keep updating my skills, updating the value to this channel. And your journey will probably be similar if you're not starting with a significant followership behind you. But what I love about it is it's a great way to create content. So if you're doing 10, 15, 20 minutes or more a week, and you're capturing it in video, you've got YouTube covered if you're putting it on that channel, which I highly recommend because you can get a lot of organic traffic on there. If you're cutting it into sound bites, you've got shorts, you've got reels for all those different social media channel distributions. You've got the audio going out across all the different podcasting platforms that people listen on. So it's a very diverse content production strategy. And if you're showing up, you're adding value, having conversations, it's a great way to build your position in a niche or marketplace, which is why I think when you're starting out, really consider about who your listeners are, where you can add the most value, the types of conversations you want to be having. Try not to go too broad. Try and have a little niche that you can carve out for yourself so you can get targeted listeners and start bumping up the rankings on the different platforms that you're on. And with time, if you keep showing up and you're consistent, that could evolve into having a significant profile that can lead to a lot of opportunities in terms of commercial viability for yourself. Now, for me, it's about showing up and adding the value when I don't have to. So fortunately, having the companies and having built them up to a certain level, we can derive all our income and financial resources for our family and our wealth creation through those assets. So I don't need to do this podcast as a monetization strategy. It's really there to add value. And I love teaching and having the conversations. But I do also understand that if you build a good podcast and you start to build a bigger online following, there's a commercial roll-on effect from that, and people will tune in and hear about what you do in the business sense, if that's what you're talking about, and may be interested in what your companies do on that note as well. So you will pick up some residual clients through the process. So for me, I've got that very long-term view. I'm not too stressed about the stats, and I don't think you should be if you're just starting out until a long time into the future. At 100 episodes, I'll have a deep think about how it's all going and what it looks like, but I'm committed to at least that for now and playing the long game. And plenty of stories of people that are very high profile now saying that it took several hundred episodes before they really started to get attention and get on the radar and map. So you've got to want to do it. It's got to be something that you enjoy. If you're doing it for commercial or money reasons and you haven't got that following already in place, you're probably going to give up pretty quickly because there isn't a lot of traction early on when you're building an audience and you don't have followers. So be prepared for that. But if you're doing it because you want to do it, you want to add value, you want to serve the marketplace, it's exciting, it's fun, then you will succeed and play that long game and just create a rhythm that's easy to commit to. So for me, it's that 1 episode a week minimum. If we get more than that, that's a bonus, but just something that there's no excuses to not be able to hit record and at least get a 10-minute conversation out there and have that consistency. And I've seen it with other platforms that we've been consistent on for a number of years. When you do show up at a frequency, over time, it does start to have an impact and you do start to reach more people, and it does have some compound effects from that. So if you want to start a podcast in 2023, I highly encourage you to do it for all those reasons I said. It's a great way to create baseline content that can get distributed in many different ways and formats. It's just got a ton of flexibility with where you can take it, and it's a really easy place to show up to each week. People love podcasts. They love tuning in. It's a very popular form of media. You can get guests on. You can have fun. You can interview. if you like me and you're bootstrapping with the podcast, you can get started with a mic, an application on your computer, and the hosting service like Buzzsprout to distribute across all the platforms, so it doesn't have to be a huge investment. And then down the track, as it gets more viability and you get more resources, you might look at getting into a studio, or you might be there already where you can dive straight in because you've got that sort of setup. But do it because it's fun. Always have the listener in the back of your mind and adding as much value as you can to them, because that's what's going to get their attention and people tuning back in. So on that note, if this was helpful, if you have any questions around starting your podcast, I think this is episode 12 of mine, so very early days. If you want to reach out to ask about any of the things I've spoken about that aren't clear, or you want to clarify, you just want more detail, then by all means contact me. There's ways to do that in the show notes. If there's a comment section, you can certainly do that. I'm here to help and would love to see your podcast succeed and reach a lot of people next year. So subscribe. If you've got this far into the episode, there's obviously some form of value, or you've been forced into listening to it because you couldn't get to the skip button or whatever it is. Subscribe and follow. We'll be dropping a lot of episodes in 2023 that should contribute to your success in marketing, business, and wealth, including some fun guests. Like I said, reach out if you have anything that you want to ask. But we are at the pointy end of 2022, so if you don't get a chance to tune in to another episode before 2023 ticks over, wishing you a prosperous and safe and abundant Christmas. One thing that I will say is, if you can do just one small deed for someone else, I think that's a very powerful act around Christmas time. We always do it every year. This year we helped out a family that we know needed some help funding their Christmas so they could have that experience. And then we brought a series of toys to gift to, again, families that were struggling to come up with the economic resources to buy presents for their kids. Having a young kid, I know that toy will mean a lot to those families that get gifted that. So if you can do something simple like provide a meal or gift a toy, something like that, you can make a big difference on someone's day. So just have that in the back of your mind. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back again soon with a brand new episode of the Marketing Business Wealth Podcast.